Hey everyone, welcome to my spoiler review or discussion about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. This has many spoilers, so watch my previous video if you don't want to get spoilers because they're going to come fast and furious. Okay, so what did I think about the ending of this movie? It's a bit of a cheat, and I'll tell you why. There are scenes in this movie with the Manson family and Charlie Manson. Not many. There's not many with Charlie. I was expecting more. And they're menacing, but they're really only menacing because you know who they are. And I feel that feels like a bit of a cheat to me. You know, in a movie, if you had made a completely fictitious movie and didn't use the Tate murders to frame it, you would be forced to set something up to foreshadow the murders. You'd be forced to do that. And that would help, you know, hammer home the ending. But in this case, he just doesn't do it because it's like, oh, everybody knows, you know, what happened. Well, first off, not everybody knows. It was 50 years ago, man. And, you know, so I knew it. I'm old enough to remember the Tate murders and enough of the details that I was like, oh, no, it's Tex. You know, I remember the lines. I read about the Tate murders. You know, at the end of the movie when he says the line, you know, I was like, oh, yeah, that's what he said at the murders. So, you know, all that really doesn't, you know, ring true. What I think this movie is, I think this is the revenge of Hollywood. This is Tarantino giving Hollywood its own little magic make-believe what-if story in an alternate universe where the Tate, you know, the Manson family gets their clock cleaned. So, and that's what happens. Obviously, I'm spoiling it all. I told you it was a spoiler. Sorry, you were warned. But that part of it is pretty satisfying. It's very sort of satisfying to see the Tate murderers not, you know, get sidetracked and then get obliterated by Brad Pitt and Leonardo. But what message does that send? I'm guessing that the message Tarantino is saying is the key moment is in the car when Tex and the other murderers are talking about, they recognize Leonardo as Rick, and like, yeah, when I was a kid, I had a lunchbox. And so I think the implication is these guys grew up on violent TV because there's all this violent TV shows that Tarantino makes up for the movie. And I guess the implication is that culture of violence sort of laid the groundwork for these people to make the next leap when Charlie, you know, fried their brains, which is interesting. But then you have a guy like Brad Pitt who actually committed violence. He was a war hero. He's, you know, a stunt man, and he probably killed his wife and got away with it. You don't see that. You don't know. It may have been an accident, but you know, he probably killed her. So, you know, it's interesting to see that dynamic. Like Brad Pitt's, I mean, he's a murderer, really, but he's not a bad guy. Like, he's a good guy. He has sense. He feels bad for the ranch owner being taken advantage of. You know, and he feels, you know, he feels bad for his buddy. And the dynamic between Leo and Brad in this movie, I mean, the bromance is just amazing. That whole thing is just great. You know, they're both amazing performances, and I would like to see more of them. I would like to see those two do more movies. I mean, together. I mean, it was just great. And you feel so bad at the end, you know, when their bromance is kind of falling apart. But, you know, Brad Pitt's character takes it all in stride, you know. And but the thing is, Tarantino cheats a bit in that he starts giving you all the details of the lead up to the murders, which I assume are true. I don't know all that many details. I mean, they seem pretty true. You know, he's going through the timeline of that night. And then because, you know, the idiot hippies pull up in a loud car, it all goes wrong because Rick Dalton's living next door. Or, you know, yeah, Rick Dalton. That's his the character's actual name. And then, of course, you know, his invite into Tate's house at the end with the gates opening up. It's like the gates of heaven opening up. And he is finally ushered into the heaven of Hollywood, I think is the visual message there. But, you know, I would have liked to have seen more traditional foreshadowing in the script. A little bit, just a little bit. So we could have seen a little bit more of, you know, why Tex was a menacing guy, why the hippies in the compound were menacing. It didn't quite get it. I mean, it's kind of hinted at simply because Brad Pitt goes in there to check on the rancher, but I don't think it's enough. I think they needed one, you know, I think they needed something with Charlie maybe, something a little more sinister. But, you know, and maybe the messages too, like the old ways were the best ways, because it's like two manly guys at the end beat the hippies. And so, like, maybe there's this subtext about, and it's going to sound weird to tie it in, but they lived on a commune, which is like a little communist utopia, kind of. But communism always breaks down into a dictatorship, and that's kind of what a cult breaks down into too, except it's just at a smaller scale. So instead of the commune, you know, just overthrowing Charlie, it turns into a dictatorship with Charlie at the helm. So in a way, it's like the sort of other forces that, you know, because Brad Pitt's the war hero, and Rick Dalton, Leonardo DiCaprio, is a war hero in the movies. He's in the movie with the flamethrower and uses the flamethrower at the end of the movie to finish off one of the Tate murderers, who I guess you would call them just crazy hippies. So the only moment where we really get the sense of their sinisterness is in the car when they're talking. So that part of it is interesting, and that's really the whole movie. And there's a lot of buildup. So that ending makes all the scenes with Sharon Tate almost superfluous. You know, her running around, going to see herself in a movie, which is interesting. I assume that was the actual Sharon Tate scenes, because it didn't look like Margot Robbie. But then it's like they're kind of so close, it's kind of hard to tell. You know, the scenes of her going into the bookstore, or, you know, having this great life, just being next door, like, who needs to even see her, really, when you think about it? You know, you didn't need to see that much of her. And there's like scene after scene of people in the car riding with the radio, and it must have been like, I mean, they put out a soundtrack, there must be like 100 songs on it, because there were so many great songs. For me, that's kind of an era. I love that music, but like, it was almost like overwhelming, the amount of music in the movie. It's a little too much. I felt like I was bombarded by radio in the movie, which is kind of true to real life. But overall, you know, I like the movie, but I do think the historical switcheroo is a bit of a cheat, and wouldn't have been the way I would have gone, but what are you going to do? Okay, so that's my wrap. I might have one more short one in me.